All right, let's dive into a really fascinating paradox that sits right at the heart of modern tech. On one hand, you've got blockchain, a technology that's literally built to be permanent. But on the other hand, you have our fundamental rights, which say we should be able to delete our personal information. So, how can those two things possibly exist in the same universe? Let's figure it out.
And that is the million-dollar question, right? How can companies tap into the incredible power of this unchangeable technology without, breaking the law or, more importantly, breaking our trust? We're going to break down exactly why this is such a tricky problem and then get into the really smart solutions engineers are building as we speak.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Blockchain is a game changer. It's totally transforming huge industries, everything from finance to healthcare. But the very feature that makes it so revolutionary, this permanent, unchangeable record, well, that creates a massive headache when it comes to our personal privacy.
Okay, so to really get the conflict here, we first have to understand our side of the bargain, our data rights. You've probably heard of big regulations like GDPR over in Europe or the CCPA in California. These laws establish what are called data subject rights, or DSRs, which are basically the rules of the road for how anyone can handle our personal data.
Essentially, these rights give you, the individual, real, meaningful control over your own information. You can see it, you can fix it if it's wrong, and most importantly, you can demand that it be deleted. Now, for this conversation, we're going to zoom in on two of these in particular. The right to erasure, which you might know as the right to be forgotten, and the right to rectification, which is just your right to correct bad data. Because as you're about to see, these two rights are in a collision course with blockchain. Okay, so on one hand, we've got our data rights. Now, let's look at the other side of the coin, the technology itself. Let's break down the core principles of blockchain that create this direct conflict, because this is where that paradox really snaps into focus. And boom, this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you have blockchain's superstar feature, immutability. Once something is written to the chain, it is set in stone. It cannot be changed or deleted, ever. But look at the right. Our right to erasure says our data must be deletable. You see the problem? It's a fundamental, head-on collision of principles. And it's the same thing with transparency versus our right to control who sees our stuff. They are completely at odds.
So, this is the core of it all. The technology is shouting from the rooftops, this record is forever. But the law is right there shouting back, people have to be able to delete their story. How on earth do you square that circle? How do you reconcile these two incredibly powerful and seemingly opposite forces?
Well, here's the good news. While it might sound like an impossible problem, it's not. It's really an engineering challenge. And it turns out there's already a pretty solid playbook for how to solve it. So let's walk through 5 of these smart solutions that developers are using right now. So the game plan looks kind of like this. First and foremost, the simplest rule of all, just don't put personal data on the blockchain in the first place. Second, use some really clever encryption tricks. Third, build your smart contracts to be privacy aware. Fourth, just practice good data hygiene. And fifth, and this is a big one, just be honest with people. Okay, this first solution is probably my favorite, just because it's so elegant. You see it right here. You keep all the really sensitive stuff, your personal data, your user profile, in a regular, old-fashioned, changeable database, completely off the blockchain. Then, on the permanent blockchain, you only store a pointer to that data, like a unique ID or a cryptographic hash. Think of it like a digital fingerprint. It proves the data existed, but it isn't the data itself. So if a user wants to be forgotten, you just delete their info from the off-chain database. The fingerprint on the chain now points to, well, to nothing. Problem solved. But what if you absolutely have to put some personal data on-chain? Well, that's where this awesome technique called crypto shredding comes into play. It sounds like something out of a spy movie, right? The idea is you encrypt the data before you put it on the chain. Now, if you get a deletion request, you can't delete the data, it's permanent. But what you can do is find that unique encryption key and destroy it forever. The encrypted data is still on the chain, sure, but it's just a meaningless jumble of characters now. It's unreadable gibberish. You've effectively forgotten it. Smart contracts give us another really powerful tool. You can think of them as little automated privacy lawyers living on the blockchain. You can program them to do things like automatically log when a user gives or takes back their consent. And if that consent is taken back, the smart contract can immediately trigger an action to delete the related off-chain data, all while creating a perfect permanent audit trail, proving that you followed the rules. Now, the next 2 solutions are less about fancy code and more about just good principles. First up is data minimization. It's an incredibly simple idea. Just don't collect data you don't absolutely need. The less sensitive data you're holding on to, the less risk you have. It's that simple. And finally, transparency. This one's huge. It just means being completely straight with your users. Tell them exactly what's on-chain, what's off-chain, and how they can exercise their rights. Building trust isn't just about clever engineering. It's about clear, honest communication. So when you put this all together, what does it really mean? It means we have to shift our whole mindset. This isn't a fight of innovation versus compliance. It's about designing for innovation with compliance built right into its DNA from the very beginning.
So here it is, the playbook for any company that wants to build trust while using this amazing technology. First, design your systems to split personal identity from those permanent records. Second, give your users real visibility and control. Third, use smart contracts as your privacy watchdogs. And maybe most importantly, get your lawyers, your engineers, and your compliance folks in the same room from day one, not after there's a problem.
And really, it all comes down to this one simple, powerful idea. Blockchain is not inherently anti-privacy, but it absolutely positively demands that privacy can't be some checkbox you tick at the end of a project. It has to be a core design principle, right from the very first line of code.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. As we create all this groundbreaking new technology, we have to constantly be asking ourselves a very simple question. Is our innovation actually earning our trust?